Bhagavan Isho Nahi Tatra Visajjate Atmalabhena Purnarto Navasidanti Enutam Ihate engages in activities of creation, maintenance, and annihilation. Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, Ishaha, the Supreme Controller, Na, not, He, indeed, Tatra, in such activities, Visajjate, he becomes entangled. Atmalabhena, because of his own gain. Purna Artaha, who is self-satisfied. Na, not. Avasidanti, are disheartened. Yea, persons who. Anu, follow. Tam, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The title of the chapter, by the way, is The Manus, Administration of the Universe. Administrators of the Universe, the Manus. Translation, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is full in opulence by his own gain, yet he acts as the creator, maintainer, and annihilator of this material world. In spite of acting in that way, he is never entangled. Hence, devotees who follow in his footsteps are also never entangled. Purport. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 3:9, Yagyatat kamanan yatra loko yang karma bandhanaha. Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work binds one to this material world. If we do not act in Krishna consciousness, we shall be entangled, like silkworms in cocoons. Do everyone know what a silkworm in a cocoon is? Is this familiar? I mean, those who are English-speaking first tongue naturally know, but do you understand what a silkworm in a cocoon is? Have you? Pardon? In a cuckoo? Cuckoo. Cuckoo. So we're inside of a cocoon, we're entangled inside. Huh? The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, appears in order to teach us how to work so that we will not be entangled in this material world. Our real problem is that we are entangled in materialistic activities. And because we are conditioned, our struggle continues through punishment in material existence, in one body after another, in different forms of life. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 15:7, Mam evangsho jivaloke jiva bhuta kshanatanaha manaksashtanindriyani prakriti stani karshati. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the 6 senses, which include the mind. The living entities are actually minute forms who are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord is full in everything, and the small particles of the Lord are also originally qualified like Him, but because of their minute existence, they are infected by material attraction and thus entangled. We must therefore follow the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then, like Krishna, who is never entangled by his material activities of creation, maintenance, and annihilation, we will have nothing for which to lament. Navi siddhanti ye nutam. Navi siddhanti. What was it again? Ye nutam. Last line of the verse. Huh? Hence devotees. It means hence devotees who follow in his footsteps are never entangled. Krishna personally gives instructions in Bhagavad Gita, and anyone who follows these instructions is liberated. Following Krishna's instructions is possible when one is a devotee, for Krishna instructs that one should become a devotee. Man bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Always think of me and become my devotee. Worship me and offer your homage unto me. Always thinking of Krishna means chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. But unless one is an initiated devotee, he cannot do this. As soon as one becomes a devotee, he engages in deity worship, madhyaji. A devotee's business is to offer obeisances to the Lord and the spiritual master constantly. This principle is the recognized way to come to the platform of bhakti. As soon as one comes to this platform, he gradually understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and simply by understanding Krishna, one is liberated from material bondage. Hare Krishna. The last paragraph there is very, you could say, very interesting. The whole purport is, of course, directed towards the objective of human life, which is not to remain entangled in this material world. The purpose of human life is to be freed from material entanglement and to come, through the practice of bhakti, to pure, loving, devotional service to Krishna. To come to that platform, to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra offenselessly, pleasingly to Krishna, one has to not only receive from the spiritual master or the pure devotee of the Lord the mantra, but one has to practice and follow according to the process which they have given. In the first part of the purport we see, or we should say here, how Prabhupada is emphasizing the importance of following the instructions of Krishna as given in Bhagavad Gita. If we have a copy of the Bhagavad Gita here, I didn't prepare, but we might find some relevant verses to, every verse is relevant, but to this particular topic of by hearing Srimad Bhagavad Gita or understanding Bhagavad Gita, or as the verse says, following in the footsteps, one becomes freed from entanglement in this material world. It's not something which we find in the agenda of most people. They may want to get disentangled from a particular relationship with somebody or something. But as a whole, this idea is not part of their modus operandi, or whatever you call it. Their business is to become, knowingly or unknowingly, more entangled in this world. They may not see it in the same way exactly. They see it as an endeavor to try to enjoy the body and the mind and the senses, the world around us, more and more and more, by any means, practically. Where has he gone? We have no Bhagavad Gita in the temple room? We should keep one in the whatever, bookcase, the bookcase here. One in French, one in English. Always keep a Bhagavad Gita at hand. Maybe someone's taken it away. Best not to take the books. I mean, there was one there last time at least. So most people, their idea is to make the existence within this material world more favorable to their own concepts. Well, it's not surprising if they have no knowledge beyond this bodily platform of life, not following spiritual master, not following Krishna's instructions. Similarly, when we talk of initiation, it's not just a formality. It really indicates following, giving up. I would like to read, I don't know, Bhagavad Gita, maybe we don't have any here in Mayapur. It's taking so long, I can't believe it. Has anyone got one in their pocket? I've been asking for the Bhagavad Gita for the last 5 or 10 minutes. No, it won't work. Okay, well, I'll go and get one in 1 minute, probably. Maybe we can all find a Bhagavad Gita. Gee. Lochan, make sure this never happens again, please. Unbelievable. You have so many copies. Okay. Please. There was one there last. Always one there. Yeah. Not in Prabhupada's room either. Huh? Incredible. If anyone needs an English Gita, we have plenty and plenty copies. So many copies. If you don't know where to get one, just ask me, I'll give you one. French, we have also plenty copies. No need to take from the temple, just ask. Where are we now? Well, let me put it over to you. Has everyone returned?
Yes, ma'am.
They've all returned from Sankirtan. Normally we distribute books, but here we're bringing them back. So let's put it over to you, because you're fresh, young, good memories, and we're old, not prepared, and forget easily. So where do we find indication in Bhagavad Gita, by following in the footsteps of Krishna, we can become freed of entanglement in this material world? Can somebody give me a verse? Okay, that's a beautiful verse. One time Prabhupada was, I believe, now, I may be easily corrected, but somebody, I believe it was Subhag Swami, as you told me this, that he was with Srila Prabhupada in his room, and Prabhupada said that verse from the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Was it verse 9? 4:9, I think. Janma karma chame divyam, evam yo veti tattvataha. A beautiful verse. Prabhupada said, this is the most important verse. Now, we would say that about many verses. We can read it, depending on the situation. Huh? It's like Prabhupada would say, these are the most beautiful deities in ISKCON. Huh? Right? I mean, definitely Prabhupada would say that if he came today to Mayapur. But then he'll go to London and say, these are the most beautiful deities in ISKCON. And then he'll go to Los Angeles and say, these are the most beautiful deities in ISKCON. Like that. They're all the most beautiful. So all the verses in Bhagavad Gita, but there are certain verses which are particularly specifically and particularly emphasizing the essence of the Gita, and that is one of them. Janma karma chame divyam. So what does it mean? No, give me a second here. What does it mean?
The transcendental appearance and pastimes of the Supreme Lord.
Yeah, that's it, huh? Well, only one though. Doesn't what? Why not? That doesn't sound right. Maybe it's good. Yes, one who understands the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities, upon quitting his body, doesn't come back to this material world, but attains my eternal abode. Huh? Okay, that's the beauty. Understanding the transcendental nature of Krishna. Well, a lot of the Gita is directed, quite a few verses, are directed to directly trying to understand that transcendental nature of Krishna, isn't it? And if one understands that transcendental nature, there's some other verses too. Can anyone think of some other verses? I tell you, I wish I'd prepared, but I kind of knocked off. And where's Revatinanda Prabhu? He must have a whole bag full of verses there. He must have prepared. Okay, what's the translation of that verse?
If you always think of me, you will pass over all obstacles.
Machita Magatapana Bodhyantak Parasparam, from the 10th chapter, as I see it. You all have to have your Bhagavad Gitas, huh?
That's not the translation.
No, it's another verse, isn't it? So what is that verse? Well, we'll pass over all the obstacles. I thought I had it, but I don't have it. Huh? Tell us where it is. 18th chapter, which verse? Huh? Are you sure it's 18th chapter? 18th chapter, okay. Good, we're very happy to be here. 18th chapter? 18th chapter? You sure? Someone can look it up in their Bhagavad Gita. 58. Okay, you got it. It's not 60 something. It must be in the 50s, yeah. Yes. Very good. Matchita savagurdurgani mat prasadat tarishasi. Nice verse. Thank you. If you become conscious of me, and as Prabhupada is saying in this verse, conscious of Krishna, we do our part, but Krishna also, in regards to the last paragraph, we could say, is not just a mechanical thing that we do, therefore Krishna must do. There's a question of one's attitude, one's consciousness in relationship to devotional service. Initiation isn't just a mechanical thing. It's actually giving up the false ego, becoming freed from this idea of seeing ourselves in the center as the enjoyer. This is what is the cause of our entanglement in this world, is we're seeing ourselves in the center. We're very conscious of everything which relates to that concept of me being in the center. And as long as Krishna, in whatever way we understand Krishna, is able to fulfill that concept of me being the enjoyer, me being in the center, then Krishna is a good boy. He's a good God. And if he doesn't, then he's not a good God. I don't need him. And we go to another God, or no God at all. Just go to the science or something or another. If we haven't understood the actual, haven't understood practically anything, but we certainly haven't understood anything between matter and spirit. We're still very much entangled. What to speak of understanding the nature of mame vangsa jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. That we are part and parcel of Krishna. Prabhupada often gives that example, how we are part and parcel. Uses that statement. Sometimes people don't grab it or understand it because it's not a very common terminology. Even amongst devotees, many, even Prabhupada's godbrothers, couldn't quite understand what he was getting at. But it's referring to the fact that just as the finger or the toe is a part and parcel of the body, it had its own individuality in one sense, in being a finger or toe or whatever it is. But its business is not to act independently. The business of the finger is to act according to the will of the body. And then you have harmony. Then there is satisfaction. If the finger is independently trying to act, then neither finger, certainly the finger will not get satisfaction. And the whole, in the case materially speaking, as a body, is bereft of a certain, part. In the case of Krishna, Krishna is describing here, in one sense, that he's complete in his own opulences, full. He's Atmarama. He doesn't really depend on any particular, he's completely independent. He's not depending on, the finger depends on the body depends, materially it's like that. But transcendentally, Krishna is not really dependent upon, anything. He's completely self-sufficient. He doesn't need anything. He's complete himself. But he expands in so many ways in order to fulfill the desire to expand or increase his pleasure. But he's not like, yes, he feels like that too, that when one part and parcel is away in this material world, trying to imitate, you could say, yes, the Lord is suffering. But it's not that, he's crying up there. I mean, in different ways, he expands in various ways, which do have that expression of, you could say, like as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's Patita Pavana. He's the deliverer of the fallen souls. He's feeling great anxiety that his parts and parcels are entangled in this material world. It also manifests through his pure devotees. They are manifesting that aspect of compassion, which of course is manifest or present in Srimati Radharani, but it manifests, practically speaking, through his devotees. He comes himself and speaks the Bhagavad Gita, performs pastimes, many different forms he appears in this world. This aspect, but in his original form, is not like he's completely absorbed in what he actually wants to be entangled in, what he actually wants to be dependent on, which is the pure love of his devotees. And you could say, naturally, if a little finger on our hand, it may not be a major organ or a major part of our body, but when there's any damage or pain there, we pay all attention to try to bring it back to its normal condition. So similarly, that's the will of the Lord. He wants that all living entities come back. It doesn't interfere with his loving relationships on the spiritual platform, but that is his desire also, that all living entities should return back to Godhead. So he speaks, and this administration of the universe by the Manus, these statements here in the Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, are to try to help us to understand that we should realize we don't belong in this material world. We are entangled, which means we have to experience birth after birth, karmic reactions, creating another lifetime and another lifetime and another lifetime. That's not our real business. And our real business is to bring this to an end, to go back to Godhead. How we go back to Godhead? Well, Prabhupada has described in his Paramarkane Bhagavat Dharma, this Srimad Bhagavatam, but we have to understand it. To understand it, we have to hear it from the right source. To hear it from the right source means we have to apply what we hear. Otherwise, we won't understand. It's not a theoretical thing. It's not just an imposition. It's a realization within of the living entity. It's not just a mental exercise or a physical activity. That's there to help facilitate the realization within our heart, where our consciousness becomes absorbed in Krishna. Everything in this movement, all the words spoken by Krishna, the Bhagavatam, deity, worshipping the deities, is all to, the Lord is appearing in these various ways to try to help us to evoke remembrance of Him. This is the point, remembering Krishna. That will free us from entanglement, where our minds are absorbed in remembering different objects of this world, or different plans that we have in this world, or different emotions that we're experiencing in relationship with the world around us. Most of the time we're absorbed like this, absorbed in things which we like, or we would like to have, etc. Absorbed in things we don't like, or we don't like to have, or people we like, or people we don't. And so on and so on. Nowadays, at this point of time, for the last few months, most people have been more than usually absorbed in coronavirus, right? And many people, both that itself and what is next. What's going to happen? They're being completely bombarded day and night by it, practically speaking. That is the real virus. It's not so much this little tiny virus, but it's that we're actually, our minds are becoming preoccupied with that and the effects which we're told are as a result of that little tiny virus. Isn't it amazing how easy it is that little virus, or somehow or another, everyone has practically become coronavirus, corona conscious, COVID conscious, whatever. Incredible. If only it could be the same with Krishna consciousness. If everyone could become so absorbed. Somehow or another, people are not so absorbed. And just like that virus has a very powerful... Well, Prabhupada does say that this Krishna consciousness, when we give a little drop of Krishna consciousness to people, ourselves inclusive, that it acts just like a little radiation, sometimes a little radiation. It may take time before it manifests in its effects. Every virus also takes time. It doesn't generally manifest immediately. It may take weeks before its effects are fully experienced. or not experience, or whatever. But it takes weeks, usually. So it takes time. But that virus is there. It's that poison or whatever. Prabhupada says, has entered in. It's a matter of time. It manifests step by step by step in most cases. And various people may challenge their own ideals or their own concepts of life and so on and so forth. At some point of time start thinking, is there something more than this? It may take time before we actually come to that point of really being serious about looking for something more. We may just speculate or just dabble a little bit in spirituality. But gradually the effect will be there until one comes to this point. So we're going to read the verse which you just mentioned. And this, don't forget, it is in the 18th chapter, as is Manmana Bhava Madbhukto Madhyaji Mam Namaskuru. It's in the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita. And human life is meant to work towards this, step by step. If you rather become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles. This is a beauty, isn't it? All the obstacles of conditional life. There you go. There's one bit more to it. What was the other bit? Who knows the next few words? If you become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditional life. There's another bit to the sentence. Most important bit, in one sense. What is it? What does Krishna say? Not what we think. Krishna is not Bhagavad Gita as I think.
If we act with our ego, we will be lost.
There we go. Another one. Huh? What's the next part of the sentence? What does Krishna say? If you become conscious of me, you will cross over all the obstacles of conditional life by
His mercy?
More or less, my grace. This whole section here is, you do your part, but it depends on me. It's not just you, you're not the doer. You're a doer. You've got to show you want, but ultimately it depends on Krishna, depending on Krishna. That's the secret. That's the essence of Bhagavad Gita in one sense. To have that dependence on chanting the holy names. Initiation means to become dependent on Krishna. Not depending on some... And that includes depending on his instructions. And not just, depend. I can't break it down, but depending on Krishna, depending on his instructions, depending on devotees, depending on the holy name, like that. Not depending on our material qualifications, depending upon others' material qualifications, depending on the protection of others. Obviously in society these things go on, but you can't depend on them. They're all described in the Bhagavatam as fallible. And there's another nice verse, isn't there? Mam chiyo vyabhicharena. What is that? Mam chiyo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sugunam samatityaitan brahma bhuya yokalpate. Famous verse, isn't it? Where is that? 15th chapter?
14th chapter.
14th? 14 what? Well done, thank you Bhagavati. And Lochan, 14:27. Huh? Pardon?
26.
Oh, look at that. Oh, we're one out. How will we go back to Godhead if we get the wrong verse number? You'll fail the test. No, you can't come back. You got the wrong number. I'm sorry. I got the right verse. No, try again. Back you go. You have to, a Bhakti Shastri test, is it, when you arrive at the gates of heaven? You have to take a... There'll be a marking the test there. No, not qualified. Yes, one who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and comes to the level of Brahman, the spiritual platform, by engaging in devotional service. So this is the message of Bhagavad Gita. This is the actual taking shelter of Krishna, that we follow him, following in his footsteps. Mahajana Yena Gutaksapunta. In the case of devotees, we follow in their footsteps. Doesn't mean an artificial thing that we walk around wherever they go. What are you doing, Prabhu? I'm following the footsteps of my guru. Wherever he goes, to the bathroom, to the bed, everywhere. I follow in his footsteps. Well, Prabhupada said that one time to one devotee. I was kind of, not entirely, but more or less, wherever Prabhupada went, there he was, popped up. Prabhupada, I love you, Prabhupada. You are my life and soul, Prabhupada. You know, as in Vrindavan, then the next thing, London, next place, you know, Los Angeles, New York, everywhere. There he was, morning walk. You know, anywhere and everywhere, there he was, pop up. Very nice. Prabhupada said, if you want to love me, why don't you do something? Do something useful. This is following the footsteps, means finding out what the spiritual master wants, what Krishna wants, and doing it. It's not just about repeating it, but it's acting on it. We are part and parcel of Krishna. We've forgotten that. And we're entangled in our own little worlds trying to, you know, work things out. But it's not all about working. Sometimes we even go so far as to say, what have I got out of this movement? Huh? I gave so much of my life to ISKCON, and what have I got out of it? Not a very advanced stage of consciousness, that's one thing for sure. But we've got a lot of mercy, but we're maybe a little covered over still. And we're forgetting what mercy is. Because we're still seeing things with me in the center, a little bit, or a lot. What are we supposed to get at? Well, what are we supposed to get out of this movement? Is to get out of this world, to get out of this mentality. That's the real mercy, that we're freed of this idea of thinking that Krishna is my order supplier, his instructions should fulfill my material desires, and so on and so forth. That may be there to a certain extent, especially in the preliminary stages, but it's not the real essence of Krishna consciousness. That's why Krishna says, Sarva Dharma Pratyagya, give up all these other dependencies. Prabhupada uses it sometimes. Give up all these other shelters and take complete shelter of me. Don't depend on all activities, as the verses here say, in all activities depend upon me. Very beautifully in the 18th chapter, this is the verse we just said. Krishna, the previous verse, he says, in all activities depend upon me and work always under my protection. In such devotional service, be fully conscious of me. It's interesting. We don't always, and we don't always think of being conscious of Krishna. In the earlier chapter, I think 8th chapter, Tasmat Sarveshu Kalishu Mamanusmara Yujicha Myopato Manobadi Mame Vankshasya Shangshaya. In all your activities, you should be conscious of me with your activity. You'll become conscious of me. In all your activities, your work, everything should be dedicated to me, mind focused on me, etc., etc. This way you also will attain to me. Becoming conscious of Krishna. The path of devotional service, different stages are there. It leads to this point of becoming conscious of Krishna. It's not just being good at what we do, but that has to be in a way which leads us to become actually conscious. This is a Krishna consciousness movement. That's what it is supposed to be, to become conscious of Krishna. And the verse you quoted just now, if however, and you mentioned this part, if however you do not work in such consciousness, but act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. And we could just say, as Prabhupada says here, we remember Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna. Well, we may not remember Krishna when we chant Hare Krishna, in one sense, isn't it? You can be chanting Hare Krishna, but I mean, remembering Krishna? I don't know. I don't think I am. Or maybe once in a while, but not generally. It's just a kind of a mechanical thing in most cases, in not most cases, I can't say that, but in many cases. We may not be remembering Krishna, but it's a process, because if we follow the process given by the pure devotee, by the grace of Krishna, he will reveal himself, he'll remind us. He's in the heart. But if we act through false ego, which means that we're still seeing ourselves in the center, trying to enjoy all the various mental things that come into our mind, or trying to plan this, that, and the other, thinking we're the doers, and so many things while we're chanting Hare Krishna, which, God, I'm so afflicted by this disease condition of life. And how do we expect to become free from entanglement in this material world? We have to take shelter of He who can free us. We have to take shelter of the holy name, which means, like a child who's in desperate situation, takes shelter of the mother and father, has no other shelter. So similarly, Prabhupada said we should chant like a child crying for its mother. Well, nice to hear. We don't necessarily remember this, but we develop. We should be because we don't understand the danger of identifying with this material body. We don't understand the danger of seeing ourselves in the center. What to speak of the danger of offending other devotees, or offending Krishna, or offending devotional service, or whatever it is. The holy name, we don't realize it. We don't take it seriously, or whatever. Very great opportunity in this human life. That's the whole purpose of human life is for, is to take shelter of Krishna. Whatever stage, maybe in the preliminary stage, a little religious practice, and then, then maybe a little association with realized souls, maybe hearing a little bit, adding it to one's life gradually, more and more, engaging in devotional service maybe, and then more and more. The whole idea is to become completely pure of all anarthas, and to come to the platform of pure devotional service. Otherwise we stay in this world, even though we've got a thread around our neck moves around here, a bit of hair sticking out the back, whatever, tilak up here. That may be helpful, but it's not enough. We have to take shelter of the holy name, take shelter of the instructions of Krishna. And what does that mean? As we heard the other day, there's a beautiful verse, also in the 18th chapter. I'm going to read it. This is a few verses down line. We were looking at this the other day. 71 and 72, if you have your Bhagavad Gitas. Here. 71 and 72 of Bhagavad Gita. And Krishna says, and one who listens with faith and without envy becomes free from sinful reactions and attains to the auspicious planets where the pious dwell. Well, that may sound very strange. Huh? The auspicious planets where the pious dwell. What does that mean? Janaloka or Tapaloka, or some heavenly planet of some kind? Is that what the resort of? I thought the resort was to go back to Godhead. Well, Prabhupada describes in the purport, it depends again on our intentions. Simply hearing with faith and without envy is very good, and that alone will qualify one, but there's more to it than that. One has to act on that. One has to become a devotee of Krishna. One has to surrender to Krishna. Of course, they could say you can go hand in hand, but the point is that one has to become a devotee, not just hearing is one thing. Hearing without envy is very good, and we should do, but we also have our intentions. People may want to obtain material results. They may want to attain elevation to heavenly planets or liberation. People read the Bhagavad Gita with that intention also. They're not directly envious of Krishna, indirectly you could say, but not directly. So they get what they want. They have to go through various stages. But the real thing, the next verse says, 72, O son of Prita. So without envy, there's a quality in hearing, without envy, with faith. And these things develop, they grow. They develop by association. It's by association that one can come to the platform of pure devotional service as we associate with the holy name. And it's not just being there. When we associate with someone, we actually have to reciprocate. We have to pay attention to them. So the next verse, Krishna says, O son of Pritha, O conqueror of wealth, have you heard this with an attentive mind? An attentive mind? And are your ignorance and illusions now dispelled? Have you heard it with an attentive mind? This is the point. To hear attentively, not just to hear, but to hear with an attentive mind, with no distractions. Takes time. The whole process of devotional service is to facilitate the purification of our consciousness, so we can, or at least our mind, and eventually our consciousness becomes Krishna conscious by reflecting or by associating with that mind which is attentive to Krishna, attentive to the sound, attentive to the service, attentive to the deity, attentive to prasadam. That we may be attentive to, generally. But somehow or another, attentive to the message, and not mind wandering all over the place, thinking of something else to do. Okay, it might be related to Krishna at some point of time, but we're missing the essence. The purpose of all that is to become conscious of Krishna. And then we can cross over all the obstacles of conditional life by the mercy of Krishna. Attentive to the service we have for our spiritual authorities, etc. And then by the mercy of Krishna, we may be released from this entanglement in the material world. It's all by his mercy. There are many other verses, and perhaps you can search them today. Beautiful verses, I don't remember where, in the 7th chapter, 8th chapter. Acting in this knowledge, you'll become free. You know, how Krishna is free, transcendental, freed. He's not affected by any reactions in this world, and one who acts in the same way also becomes freed from all reactions. There are many verses like this in the Gita, but I can't remember where. So we'll finish there. Hare Krishna. Any comments? Joe.
About dependence and independence. Through the process, we should become more and more dependent on Krishna. And how do we relate this in our material lives? For example, also some devotees said we should not be dependent on the temple, we should still be independent from the temple.
Depends what we mean by dependent on the temple, I suppose.
Financially or...
Again, that depends. That will be a detail. That's a detail. As we see in the Rupa Goswami's instructions on devotional service, there are general rules and there are details. And to be dependent on Krishna is a general objective goal of devotional service. In what detailed form it may be there is another thing. Now, it depends again on what the temple is, what we mean by the temple. Everything has to be qualified in order to really delve there. We have to become dependent. The temple is what is a temple? What does it mean? A building? An institution? What does it mean? It means a place where everything is being done for the pleasure of Krishna. You could say, if you want to give a kind of a description, everything in a temple is for the pleasure of Krishna. That's the idea. So we should definitely be dependent on that. But we're not dependent on bricks and stones. And if the bricks and stones aren't there, therefore we're lost. The temple's not there anymore and finished. We're depending on the actual substance of the temple, not just the form. The form is to help us to become, or to achieve, the objective of the temple, which is to become conscious of Krishna, and to facilitate everyone's becoming conscious of Krishna. It's not just a place in of itself for the sake of it. There are many temples that are like that, maybe other religious buildings like that. They don't have any transcendental presence practically. It's mundane. It's become sometimes even a business. So we're not going to depend on that. But if we have the understanding of the real essence of the temple, like here, the essence of this temple is to bring pleasure to Radha Govinda Madhava, Krishna Balam Gauri Nitai, Srila Prabhupada, like that, here we go for them, to bring them pleasure. That's why we do what we do. We're not just doing it because we've got to fill our belly, we've got nothing else to do, or it's good, it's lazy, I can live a lazy life here. I only have to do 3 hours service a day and I can get away with it. It's not, we should think how I can do 24 hours or more service every day of my life for the pleasure of the deity. That's conscious of Krishna. Otherwise it's conscious of me and a bit of Krishna mixed in. 1 for Krishna, 50 for me. It means giving up our lives for the pleasure of the deity. That's the temple. Not just a place we go and salute the deity and say, "Oh, bless you," or something. It's a place where we want to give up our very life itself because it belongs to Krishna. We are his part and parcel and completely get free of our false egos. It may take some time. That's why we have clashes. And, I don't want to do this. I don't like this. Rah, rah, rah. It means we're acting on the basis of the false ego. I want to do it this way. I want to do it that way. It takes time. It's like training. We're being trained like wild horses. Very not easy. Not so easy in this world where we're so conditioned the way we are. And I like, even in devotional service, I like this, I like that. But that's fine in the beginning, it's understandable. But ultimately, what have we just chanted this morning? Huh? Why are we chanting the 6 Shastakam prayers? It's like, why don't we act on it? Why not try thinking of acting on it? Ai nanda tanuja kinkaramba. You can do what you like with me, Lord. Huh? I just want to be a partner at your lotus feet. It's not that we're going to go to lotus feet. Look at my latest dress, Krishna. Look at me. I'm so good at what I'm doing. I don't care what they say. It's actually good. You think that would impress Krishna? Hey, little baby. Okay, very good, sunshine. Very good. That's not pure devotional service. We have to, at least we have to understand a little bit about what pure devotional service is. We may not understand much, but a little bit. Otherwise we have to stay in this world until we have enough beatings, or whatever it may be, until we wake up. It takes a while, doesn't it, to wake up somebody who wants to stay asleep. It's not easy. We're still attached to our own false ego, how we see ourselves, etc. So the temple is supposed to be a place for reformation. Or renovation, probably uses the word renovating our consciousness. Not just a place to facilitate it, but to change it. But we tend to be a little attached sometimes to do. So we have to become dependent on that, the instructions of Krishna, which will facilitate the change of our hearts, to awaken our eternal, to come to that eternal understanding of who we are as the eternal servant of Krishna, to dedicate our lives to him. And if that's not going on, then we're missing the point. And if we don't understand that that's there, then maybe we do have to, live outside, be independent, or whatever it may be, you want to call it, and step by step, clip, 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 come forward. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So today I'm going to read the Bhagavad Gita. I'm going to look for some of those verses. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.